Any questions before we start? Do you have a question? Any questions before we start? As a free advice, asking questions before the coursework deadlines is much better and more effective than asking questions after the coursework deadlines. So yeah, I usually get a lot of questions after the deadlines, and then it's too late, right? That happens a lot. Okay, and another little announcement is on Moodle, there's a link called Early Module Feedback. So if you'd like to give some early module feedback, this is a great way to do it. This goes directly to me, and I look at the feedback and take it into account. So as an example, in last year, one of the pieces of feedback was the deadlines, the coursework deadlines. Everybody thought that the coursework deadlines were a little bit too much overlapping with the other modules. So we brought them all up by 1 to 2 weeks, so there wouldn't be so much overlap with the other modules. That's just an example. Now, some of you, like me, I was confused about this. I get confused about this. You might be thinking, like, didn't you just talk about some sort of student survey in a previous lecture? And it is true, I did talk about another one, and it's a different one. It's not the same. This one I mentioned before too. This is like the National Student Survey. This is different than the module early feedback. They're not the same. So this is like about the university, and it's sort of, I don't know, it's on a national level. So all the universities can fill this out, every student at every university. But that's not the same as the early module feedback, which is another kind of survey. That's just for this module. So they're not to be confused. Like, I confused them. I was like, wait a sec, wasn't there just some sort of a survey or questionnaire? And then I had to go back and remind myself. Did anybody else get confused for a second? No. Thank you. Bonus points. Okay, that's it for the announcements. By the way, this is from week 2 that I showed this slide. It's still there on Moodle. Today, we're going to do an exercise on finding relevant research papers. Or it could also be called searching for relevant research papers. So finding and searching for and finding relevant research papers is a skill, and this will be very helpful for courseworks 1 and 3, and for the rest of your life, whenever you need to do some research. And it'll be helpful for your dissertation, for example. But anytime you want to find out about anything, you can use this method, this skill, and I use it all the time. I'm looking at research papers all the time. So why are we looking at this? Especially for your projects, it's important to put your research into context. So that means you want to compare it with what has been done before. So in the context of, that could be from technology, previous research papers, previous hardware setups, previous software setups, and of course in the context of previous research literature, which is the focus today, previous research literature. So we're going to talk about how to find the research literature that's relevant to your subject or your topic. And we use this word context sometimes or in this module. That means the relationship between your work and what has been done by other people. That's the one-sentence summary. You want to have an awareness of what's been done by other people. So in the related work and in introduction sections of your dissertation, you outline what's been done before you, the existing research on the topic that you've chosen. And then you make a comparison of your work with the previous work. And you summarize how your work builds on or contrasts with existing work. And then you make a comparison. So you summarize and compare. How does your work draw on techniques, data sets from other papers? That's the idea. That's what we're talking about when we use this word context. If there are any questions or comments, feel free to interrupt, by the way. In just a few minutes, we'll be moving on to the active learning phase of the module. This is a very common question. How many references should I include? This is especially true about coursework 3. And I would say, like, coursework 3 is to summarize 10 papers, but each one of those papers has a related work, right? So 1 or 2 previous core-related work. So you would normally think about between 20 and 25 references for coursework 3. For your dissertations, probably more. This also is something you can talk about with your supervisor, right? How many references you should include. It would be fun to take a little survey of all the different academic staff and see what answer each one of them gives on this topic. But one thing I can tell you is they will all give a slightly different answer. There's no uniform magical answer to this. So they all give a slightly different answer. If I was answering this question, I might say something like 30 for a dissertation. 30 something around there, plus or minus 10 or something. If you have too many references, that means your topic is too broad. If you have too few references, that means your topic might be too narrow. However, it's better to start with too few references and then expand rather than starting with millions of references and trying to narrow. It's much easier to start very specific and then expand. A lot of supervisors will say, start with these 2 papers and then build on that. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to start with 1 paper and then expand, actually. So how to find research papers. So step 1 is to search using a digital library or a search engine. These are the big 3. Google Scholar, IEEE Explore, and the ACM Digital Library. So this is where you're going to find a lot of your related work, a lot of your research papers for coursework 1 and coursework 3, and your dissertation, and for the rest of your life, possibly. The advantage of Google Scholar is that it's free. The IEEE Explore and ACM Digital Libraries are not free, but they're free if you have a student status at the university or academic staff. The university pays a fee that's probably way too large every year to subscribe to these digital libraries. So make sure you use them while you can before you graduate. Because after you graduate, you probably won't have access to them anymore. And then there are some other ones you can also look at, some extras, so to speak. but these are the ones we will generally focus on. I rarely use anything except for these three. I rarely use, these are the primary. And the two that I use the most are the IEEE Explorer and then Google Scholar. So step one for today's workshop, this is the workshop instructions, is you search for an existing survey paper, also called a state-of-the-art report, on a subject you're interested in. So you choose a subject you're interested in. For example, a survey paper on visualization for artificial intelligence. That could be something that you look for. Or a state-of-the-art report on visualization and storytelling. Those are two search phrases that you can enter into the digital libraries and see what's there. Some of the research papers summarize or provide a tutorial. Right? Survey papers and review papers don't generally introduce brand new ideas. They provide an overview of the literature on that topic. So we're looking for a special kind of research paper, a survey or a literature review. And there's some journals are dedicated to these kinds of papers, like Computing Reviews is a kind of journal that only publishes survey papers and state-of-the-art reports. Sometimes papers will be a tutorial style, so they'll give you an introduction to a topic in an educational fashion without assuming too much prior knowledge. So finding papers on your topic, start with a survey. Start with a survey or a literature review or a state-of-the-art report, whatever you want to call it. Step two, if you want to find more related work on your topic, you look in the references of a research paper, like the survey. So every research paper has a list of references at the end, and you can look at those list of references to find work related to yours. This is something I call back-facing. So you're starting with a research paper, right? And then you're looking back to see what's been published before this research paper. That's back-facing. This also there's a word called snowballing that also refers to this. Starting with a given research paper, looking at the list of references to see what's the most interesting. Then there's a way to look forward. So you have a research paper, you know how to look backwards. If you want to look forward into the future of that research paper, because every research paper was published during a specific year or a specific time, you can look at the papers that have cited a given research paper. So imagine I go to Google Scholar and I find a survey paper called Storytelling and Visualization, an extended survey. There's a feature called Cited By. It's down here. And it lists all the papers that were published afterwards that cite this survey. Does that make sense? So it's forward-looking or forward-facing. And this is another way you can find research papers related to the topic that you're studying. So you get back-facing and forward-looking. Another way to find related research papers to your topic is using a website like connectedpapers.com. Has anybody ever seen this before? So you can enter, once you have a survey or a paper, you can enter it into connectedpapers.com and it will show a graph of related papers to yours. This is an exercise in coursework 3, by the way. You can also look for other visual literature browsers. So this is a visual literature browser. That's what this is. It provides a visualization or a visual interface to your literature search in the form of a network graph. But that's not the only one. You can look for other ones like VOS Viewer. You can try a different tool. It doesn't have to be Connected Papers. And then there are different systems or tools that you can use to keep track of your papers, building up a list of references. Like EndNote. There's an equivalent of EndNote for Google Docs. There's another one called BibTeX for LaTeX or Overleaf, and then there's another tool called Surveys. You're going to use Surveys for coursework 3, by the way. And then you keep track of the references that are related to your project this way. You keep essentially a database or a list of related references that you've looked at and identified as related to your topic. This will be required for coursework 3. So this is a visual interface that helps you keep track of literature, the literature in your survey or the literature that you're collecting for your coursework 3 or your dissertation or something like that. It's a web page. And this is the link to that software. So this is something you'll create for coursework 3. Okay, everybody excited for today? Everybody looks very excited today. I don't know what's going on. Something special is going on today. The enthusiasm is overwhelming. So today, we're going to do this searching for research papers exercise in groups. So you're going to form groups of approximately 6 people. Between the 6 of you, you're going to choose a topic of interest to search for. You're going to have a special topic that you decide that you think is really interesting, and you're going to start looking for research papers on that topic. But not any research. You're going to look for a survey paper or a state-of-the-art report on that topic. So not papers in general, survey paper on that topic. Using either Google Scholar, IEEE Explorer, or the ACM Digital Library. If you're really lost and you can't decide what to do, you can choose a survey paper or a star paper from this webpage. Then in that group, you start a Google Doc, one for each group. Add your team name and individual names. You add the paper title plus the list of authors and a full reference of the survey. Use Google Scholar to find out how many papers have cited your chosen survey or star. Note this number in the Google Doc. Use Connected Papers to explore and visualize the related papers of your survey. Take a screenshot and share the URL. So you add the screenshot and the URL to your Google Doc. And then you try one other visual literature browser. So you do a search for another visual literature explorer or browser. Like you can Google Visual Literature Explorer or browser and try another tool and do the same thing. You add a screenshot, the name of the tool, and the URL to your Google Doc. And then you share it with me. And I will look at them and provide some feedback. Sound exciting? I know it might not seem very exciting, but this is an extremely valuable skill. And not many people have this skill, actually. I would say maybe like 1/10 of 1% of the entire population has this skill. It's a very small percentage. So it's not really exciting, but it's very, very valuable. It's kind of ironic, like some of the things that are super, super valuable are not that exciting. Yeah, it doesn't have to be exciting to be extremely valuable. Yeah. Like food, right, is a good example. It's very, very important, but it's not that exciting. Okay, shall we start? Let's form groups then.